Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Hyde. I am a professor of law, regulation and governance at the University of Nottingham. As was mentioned, also in the room is my partner in crime and probably the kind of intellectual leader of some of this stuff, Dr. Sarah Savigan of Amplifi Global. We have been working around intelligibility of information, particularly around credit. As was raised in one of the questions to the keynote earlier, it's a really difficult thing to do, providing information to consumers so they can make decisions about the products they want to buy. There's a lot of it, and it's quite difficult for them to use. And through our work, which this forms part of, we know that just making something readable doesn't necessarily guarantee that consumers are going to be able to understand and use the information that they are given. Therefore, we have to make it intelligible, and so that they can comprehend the information, use it to make decisions, apply the information and agreements to their own situations. How do they do that? And that's what we set out to explore in this project. Understanding how consumers comprehend information is really important for businesses because it's an essential part of the consumer duty required by the Financial Conduct Authority that consumers not only are able to read the information that they're given, but they take that information and make decisions based upon it. So what we've done is we have taken kind of a standard credit agreement and done two things to it. We've transformed the language that's being used using the Amplified AI tool to improve the way that the information is given. And we've also laid it out in a way that is more easy for consumers to understand, adding in various technologies to improve the ability to comprehend. And then we've tested this new model and compared it to the standard method of disseminating this information through a durable medium, often a PDF. We tested it both through surveys and through detailed, semi-structured interviews, also gathering information using sort of UX testing technology. We were happy to find that some of the changes that we'd made did make a positive difference to the consumer's comprehension of the information. We were able to demonstrate that this novel, new layered methodology for presenting the information was preferred by consumers and also allowed them to make decisions using the information and get answers to the sorts of questions that we know consumers have about credit information more easily than they otherwise would have done. The challenge from a regulatory perspective is that the desire for comprehensible information that consumers can use comes into conflict with some of the other regulatory requirements that govern how information is presented. This is particularly the case in relation to consumer credit, where the Consumer Credit Act prescribes quite clearly how certain types of information should be presented, the order it should be presented, and in some cases, even the types of fonts that should appear. Therefore, one of the outcomes of this is that we need to think about changes to regulation to enable the sorts of innovation that we're pioneering in this project with Amplifi to be able to be used legally. And that is the next step that we're going to take. There's also a ton more. I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours and hours. And if you want to join me in those conversations, come and see me at the poster later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think it's also important to say, when you put these sort of developments in context, another project involved in, and the average reading age in the UK is 10. So it is really important, and only 42% of the population don't understand the word arrears. So you can imagine the debt cycle that people go down. So projects like that are really important to start looking, how do we simplify to make sure people can not only read it, but also actually interpret it and have an informed decision-making process. Anyway, I digress.